Hello and welcome. And for today's art lesson, we're going to discuss why your perspective drawings look weird. Now, whenever you're doing perspective, more importantly, two-point perspective, you're drawing your shapes, you're doing the steps correctly, right? You're hitting your lines of convergence on point, right? You're getting your lines of convergence on point. They're hitting that left and right vanishing point. Everything's going correct. You have your leading edge facing the viewer, closest to the viewer. You have your bottom plane, your left plane, your front plane of the object working on point, but something seems off, right? Something seems a little weird, right? Something seems a little wonky. So, like, look at these drawings. Everything's done correctly, right? I have all my shapes going towards a left and right vanishing point, right? I have my central vanishing point there that I'm not using for two-point perspective, but it's there, yes. But everything looks weird. Why do these shapes look so obscure and sharp-edged and odd, right? Well, I'm going to tell you why. The reason why your shapes look wonky or weird is because something called the cone of vision. Now, what the cone of vision in two-point perspective and one-point perspective is basically an imaginary circle that is the circumference or the radius of your central vanishing point to your vanishing point left or your vanishing point right. Yeah? And what that does is it creates an imaginary area that your eyes cannot see past that, right? Visually in your perspective. And when your shapes go past that radius, past that little imagined barrier, you're going to start getting weird things occurring along the lines of your two-point perspective and one-point perspective shapes. Especially with one-point perspective, the distortion will occur if you want to try to do like a perfect cube, right? And you're trying to do your perfect cube, and all of a sudden everything looks really long, right? Now, one way you can mitigate your let me backtrack as usual. So what you need to do when you are doing your drawing and you want to mitigate any distortion, you got to draw your cone of vision, right? So for this example that I have here, I have a horizon line, right? Just like with all the perspective drawings, you do your horizon line. I have central vanishing point, which is placed in the center of my paper. I have vanishing point left and vanishing point right, yeah? And if you want to do your cone of vision, you're going to need a compass. And what you do with that compass is you stick the little tip there, the little pin, you're going to put that in the central vanishing point, you're going to stretch out your compass all the way to vanishing point left or right, and then you're going to make a circle around creating a radius around that. You know you're doing you're doing your cone of vision correctly when the circle crosses paths between your vanishing point right and vanishing point left and creates a circumference or radius around the central vanishing point. Now, other things we're going to talk about next to kind of get you set up is you need to establish your ground line. I don't know if we talked about this in the last exercise, but you're going to have to establish your ground line. I think we did with regards to doing the one-point perspective perfect cube exercise. But you're going to need to establish your ground line, okay? Now, the ground line with regards to your cone of vision cannot be wider or longer than the distance between your vanishing point left or the vanishing point right. Okay? It can never go past that. If your ground line ends up being below here, like around here, you're going to have a lot of distortion because that means all your shapes, if you put a shape below here, that means your shape is going to be distorted because it surpasses or goes through that cone of vision, right? Now, I've also established new points here, right? I have established what they call a vertical trace, which is on the left vanishing point and the right vanishing point. You're going to want to draw those for later perspective exercises. And all it is a vertical line that intersects through the vanishing point left and intersects through the vanishing point right. And it's a vertical line on the left and right of your vanishing point left and right. Okay? I probably should have drawn this out, but I wanted to discuss what's happening here. Okay? So, again, to kind of reiterate, your ground line cannot go below your cone of vision. As you can see in this example, I've made my ground line 5 inches as opposed to the limit, which is 6 inches, because that would be right at the precipice of my cone of vision on this example. So if you want to err on the side of caution and you are doing your perspective, you start out with your horizon line, right? Your central vanishing point, you put your vanishing point left and right. Then you establish your ground line, right? You establish your ground line, which would be at most the distance between your vanishing point left and central vanishing point, or your central vanishing point and vanishing point right? Right? Am I right? Am I right? Am I right? Anyways, I digress. I kind of go in this weird tirade. I lost myself. So your ground line can't be wider than that distance, right? And then you also want to add a vertical trace on the left and right vanishing points. Okay? So look at this example. As you can see, I've established all those points of information for our perspective. In hindsight, I probably should have drawn this out. I might need to do a demo with regards to that. So what we have here is a bunch of examples showing a variety of cone of visions. So in this example, I have a cone of vision that's like an inch and a half. I have a cone of vision that's 3 inches, and I have a cone of vision that's 6 inches from the central vanishing point. And as you can see, when you do your perspective with regards to the new vanishing points that you've established here, so I have one set, 2 set, 3 sets of vanishing points, all on the same horizon line, and they all have their own cone of vision, right? And as you can see, as these forms go past their prescribed cone of vision, the shapes get weird. They get very exaggerated. The angles get sharper and sharper, right? Even more pronounced as they get farther away from the cone of vision. So that's the reason why your shapes look weird or distorted. It's because you're you're setting up your left and right vanishing point, yeah, and you are not you are not regarding the fact that you also have to respect the cone of vision, right? And that's just another layer that you got to add. You have to add to your perspective drawing, okay? So if you look at this example here, I've started it out. So this is a more simplified version of what you need to do, okay? Just like before. Again, with every perspective drawing, you want to start out with a horizon line. You want to find your central vanishing point. You want to establish your vanishing point left and right. You want to establish your ground line. In this case, it's 5 inches from my horizon line. You want to establish your vertical trace, which is a vertical line on the left, on the same axis as the left and right vanishing point. And then you want to establish the cone of vision. As I said, it's the radius or circumference, the distance between central vanishing point left or central vanishing point right, all the way around into a giant circle. And as you can see here, if we were to draw out these shapes that I have kind of pre-made, you can see that this square, this cube that I've made, is inside the cone of vision, thus has sound perspective. So if we quickly draw it out to show you what happens when you have your shapes inside the cone of vision. just take a moment to line this up in my left and right vanishing points. Making a line of convergence to my right vanishing point here. Another line of convergence towards my right vanishing point to get the bottom plane of that cube. I got to be a little careful because my easel here is really wobbly, which is pretty good for like drawing because I use that wobble for like nice pencil lines and pencil strokes, but not so good for perspective drawing here. Right? So as you can see, this shape is inside the realm of the cone of vision, thus rendering a nice perspective form. Now, with this shape, which has a bunch of the leading edges. Now, if you remember, the leading edge is the line closest to the viewer, and it has a bunch of edges on the back side that are passing through the cone of vision that we have established here. And that's going to cause distortion to your shape. As you can see, I'm doing my vertical lines here, trying to be steady as I make my marks. Don't want to mess up more than I already have. Kind of messed up there, but that's fine. Now I'm going to do my lines of convergence, doing that top edge of this cube or box form that I've made. Got to leave a little bit of room because the marker is not as fine tip as you think it would be. Got to do this side as well. Doing another line of convergence on the bottom to establish that bottom plane of this box form. As you can see, as the bottom plane is below the cone of vision, that form seems a little bit more stable visually, but as it gets higher and higher past the cone of vision, that's when the form starts to get really distorted, yeah? Just making these bottom lines, bottom edges. All right, so as you can see, just by doing that, this boxy form starts to get really obscure and strained as it gets past that cone of vision because it's going past your eyes, right? It's going past that perspective. Now, the way to normalize this is what you need to do in order to make this feel more stable is you actually have to expand your vanishing point left, vanishing point right to go past the paper. So thus expanding, increasing the radius of your cone of vision, right? And that's what you would have to constantly do to make more shapes that tend to go farther and farther out and higher and higher above the horizon and lower below the horizon line. That's how you would account for this this distortion, is to constantly make the left and right vanishing point farther out. And in certain cases, you're going to have to take it outside of your paper, right? Your left and right vanishing point don't necessarily have to be relegated or inside your picture plane or inside on your paper itself. They can go past, right? They can go past your paper. You just got to be able to account for it, okay? Now, as you can see, I'm going to do this one right here. Now, this is a very extreme case. I'm going to try to quickly draw this one and maybe quickly draw the other one. So I have two more shapes here. One shape is inside the cone of vision and right on the ground line, and another shape is outside the cone of vision. So I'm just going to line this up and get to the shape outside the cone of vision here. Already you kind of see by just looking at the yellow outline, you can see the distortion that's occurring because it's outside of basically your picture plane. Basically, it's outside your vision, outside the realm of where the viewer can see the actual shapes. Alrighty. If you're wondering why it takes so long to do perspective drawings, the answer is it just takes a really long time to do perspective drawings. By hand, they take forever because, especially if you want to do them in this manner, where you actually have to use a ruler. Uh-oh. I went a little inside with this marker, but that's fine. So again, typically when you're doing drawings like this, you're not doing perspective drawings vertically like this. It's on a draftsman table or laying flat. It's not. This is not conducive for drawing your perspective drawings. So do not do this at home unless you're really comfortable using a ruler like in this manner. So as you can see, as I'm working this shape and forming it, it's drastically below the ground line, drastically below the cone of vision, and therefore you get a very extreme form being made. Which is fine if that's what you're going for. If you want to have weird, obscure shapes, by all means, draw your shapes outside the cone of vision and you get these really odd shapes, very sharp angles and so forth. But if you're looking for more realistic forms, if you want to make like buildings and houses and skyscrapers, you can't go past this cone of vision. Otherwise, you're going to have this weird distortion. For an aesthetic, that might be something you're looking for, though. So as you can see, I'm just making this shape, and it's inside the cone of vision, thus having a more stable form. It doesn't seem too out of place. It looks like it's based off the reality, right? Doesn't look like I'm warping my forms on purpose. Okay, Almost done with this shape. Almost done. Well, 2 more lines. Bada bang, bada boom. Oh. Almost messed up. I got really close to messing up there. Nothing better than a teacher fail, right? Okay. So as you can see, right, as you can see by these shapes, the ones that are inside the cone of vision, these two, are more believable, more stable. They feel like they're based off the real world. Although this one's floating in space, it's like a hovercraft cube, but still, it feels more like a real cube than these two right here, right? So I want you to bear in mind when you are working in perspective and you are finding that your shapes are looking odd and weird, this might be the reason why. It's because you're having your shapes go outside the cone of vision. And what you need to start doing is drawing that cone of vision. So you need to make sure that your central vanishing point is placed in the center or in an area that you are comfortable with. And you need to make sure that you have your left and right vanishing point equidistant from each other, or equidistant from the central vanishing point. So if you make your left vanishing point 6 inches from the center, make sure that the right vanishing point follows suit, right? That'll always have a better outcome than to kind of randomly place your vanishing point left and right. Because if you randomly place your vanishing point left or right without having them spaced equally, you're going to get random outcomes. Okay, so this is a way to make more believable, more what you get, stable shapes, right? I just want to say thank you for your time, and that is it. If you need help or you have questions, don't forget to ask them in the comment section. I'll try to answer them the best that I can. But this is a way to establish more stable shapes for future perspective drawings. Thank you.